All right, what's up? It is what day is it? I'm losing track of the days around here. It's Wednesday. Jack's back with me. We're gonna break down college football. So many different things have changed with college football playoff. So I figured, I don't know, I'm ready for football season. I feel like everybody's probably a little bit ready for football season. We can at least start the process of going over some of the changes and get to how it impacts from a gambling perspective. And then I figured it was a good time to check in with you because obviously you haven't been doing baseball for the past, I guess, really since the finals. I know you've been traveling, just graduated. The summer kind of can get away from you a little bit. So it actually works out better that way because the last thing we want to do here is just put out picks just for the sake of putting out picks. So when we first brought you on board, Jack, the main purpose was for football season, especially college football. So I appreciate you taking some time now as we begin to do our college football preview. But yeah, I may as well say it for you. If you have picks, you'll have them. But I guess baseball just hasn't been a ton. Betting on baseball just hasn't been a top priority, which is the case for most people. So if it wasn't for the Orioles, I wouldn't be paying attention to baseball. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's do college football. Let's set it up. Man, a lot of changes. So I guess the best way to set it up is why don't you, if you don't mind, walk us through it. Instead of four teams this year, what exactly is the format? And then I'll fill in the blanks here.
Yeah, so they basically changed the format from a 4-team playoff to a 12 team playoff with the five highest ranked or four highest ranked conference champions. That would be the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC. If you win the conference, you're in. So just like Iowa last year against Michigan, if Iowa beats Michigan last year, this year they would be in over Michigan. They would be higher ranked, not saying Michigan wouldn't get in those later at-large bids, which there are 8 at-large bids in addition to those 4 conference champions. But winning your conference, you get a bye. And so if you get a bye, that's a pretty big deal because that's one less week of football you have
And
to play.
then to interject real quick, so technically the way they have it, because you're not wrong, but so technically they say the five conference, so they'll take the top five conference champions. So those other conferences, I guess in the world that what there's like a 95, 99% chance that one of those champions won't be in the top four. So it's like the top four seeds end up getting the bye, which will be the top four conference champions. And then the fifth seed is automatically a conference champion from the lesser conferences, right? Because there's no
Yeah,
more
group of
Pac-12.
5. Yeah, a group of 5 champ. And I guess, I mean, that does, you do bring up a very interesting point because if you do have like an Iowa that is like 7-4 or something and pulls a huge upset and wins the conference, a 12-0 Liberty or something, or a 12-0
Right.
Tulane or something would probably get a top 4 seed over a 8-4 Iowa.
Yeah, maybe
So
95% is a little strong. But yeah, so they designed it that way. Things can evolve. Last year, I think Liberty would have been the fifth seed, right? So then they're still using, I mean, so right. So once you have the top five seeds, so the top four seeds get a bye, like you said, and then the fifth seed is automatically, even if that team is, awful, like whatever, whoever that conference champion is out of the rest of the conferences, they automatically are slotted to the fifth seed, right?
yeah, to my understanding, that is true. Yeah.
And then 6 through 12 just goes on whoever the best teams are, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's based on still the college football playoff rankings. It's up for debate. There's no going to be formula. So we can still debate, 10, 11, and 12 and the seedings and whatnot. But essentially what they've changed it is instead of arguing about who number four is, we'll argue about who number 12 is, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it makes it super interesting because those 10 through 12 teams are now going to be likely three loss SEC teams or 2 loss or potentially even 1 loss Big Ten or ACC teams. Just because with the depth of the SEC this year, adding Oklahoma and Texas, if you lose 3 times in the SEC and you have a pretty good track record, there's a very good chance that you get in. Versus those teams, like say a 9-3 Oklahoma versus a 10-2 or 11-1 Penn State. That's going to be a really interesting debate if that Oklahoma team's losses are to say Texas and then 2 other teams that are also in the playoff.
Yeah, yeah, the conferences. So I want to talk about that for a second. So the four conferences, as you alluded to, there's no more Pac-12. It's funny. What's it? Washington State and Oregon State are technically in the Pac-12 this year. Like I guess the way the language is, they're playing a bunch of Mountain West Conference teams.
Mhm.
So essentially, that fifth seed can come from Oregon State, Washington State, and then, like you were mentioning, Tulane, Liberty. I haven't quite dived into some of these other teams to speak on Memphis, like some of the teams that Cincinnati, whatever, those types of teams. And then 6 through 12, that's going to be the debate based on the conferences, the strength of the conferences. Does the ACC get more teams? It's the Big 12, the SEC, and so forth. Um, I guess from a gambling standpoint, the thing that jumps out at me, have you looked at the schedule yet to see how the playoff schedule works?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of the first round games are actually on the home team's home turf, right?
Right.
So if you are I want to say it would probably be 6, 7, 8 seed,
Hmm.
you would or I guess it'd be 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8 seed where you don't get a bye. You're actually hosting a
Oh,
playoff game, which
hmm.
is going to be an electric environment. I really wish I was still in college to be able to experience
Have
that.
you seen the
But
schedule though? Like they're gonna have one of those games is gonna be on a Friday night, and then they're gonna have three games on Saturday. Like the schedule from a gambling perspective is unbelievable. So they'll have a game December 20th, whatever game that is, and then 3, 12, 4, and 8 on Saturday with, like you said, the better seed being home. So that obviously affects the line, which has never happened before. And then the quarterfinals, so the winners just will play accordingly. They're not going to reseed. So 5 versus 12, that winner will play the 4 seed. 8 through 9 will play the 1, and so forth. And they'll play the Fiesta Bowl, Rose Bowl, Peach Bowl, and Sugar Bowl at
mhm,
neutral sites. But the schedule is fantastic. So they'll play New Year's Eve. Same thing. They'll have one game on New Year's Eve, but they'll play that game 7:30 Eastern, and then three games on New Year's, 1, 5, and 8:45, and then the semis the following week and the championship. So from a gambling perspective, you're adding so many games. From a media perspective, you can understand why they're doing it. Since you're much younger than me, you just got out of college. From a game standpoint, if you're in the quarterfinals and you make it all the way through, right? Like if you're a 5 through 12, you're going to play 12 regular season games, 13, 14, 15, 16 games to win the national championship.
yeah, and I mean that is a lot, but you got to think. I mean, Georgia finished 2 years ago. They won. They've played 15 games, right?
Huh?
So I mean, they went 13-0 or 12-0 in the regular season, 13-0 conference championship, and then the playoff, and then the playoff again. So I mean, you really could get probably close to 17 with that conference championship added in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. So 17, let's just say it's 17. Ridiculous, not
Mhm.
ridiculous. Do you guys talk about, like, is that even a topic of conversation? Or is it just people it is what it is. An extra game or two doesn't matter.
I think a lot of the guys, I mean, at least the guys I have contacts with that are on the team are very excited to see this. There's a lot of like with the SEC kind of their turf area. I mean, you get to play all the same teams a lot of the time, but like a Georgia doesn't get to go play a USC very often. And so I think a lot of the guys are really excited to go prove themselves and kind of go show what the South's made of, show what Georgia football is really more on a national stage playing against these teams that you don't normally play against. Obviously, Georgia is a perennial contender every year, but they don't get to go play the Ohio States and the Michigans very often.
What about from the traveling standpoint? I know we're getting a little into the weeds of it right now, but how do you think that'll impact it? Do you think we should just look at the same way we look at professionals when they're traveling, an NBA team on the West Coast, NFL team playing early? Is it the same thing? Less of an impact, more of an impact for college football guys?
I'd say significantly less of an impact. They have the money and the funds to travel just like any professional baseball, professional football, any professional team. The money is there, and so they're flying private most of the time or chartering a plane, and they also have a full week to prepare. At worst, they're playing late Saturday night and playing Friday night. So I mean, that's a pretty solid amount of recovery time, right? So obviously you're getting beat up a little bit more in football than you are in say NBA or baseball. But with that recovery time, I think they'll be okay. And these teams have top of the line elite conditioning programs, strength and conditioning programs are off the charts. So I think that they're excited for the most part.
So from a gambling perspective, you always look at like trying to find an edge. And when there's new games, new information, it's always an opportunity to maybe get ahead of the curve if you have a strategy. And this will be one of them, right? Teams playing in different environments they've never played in before, a lot of traveling. So yeah, we'll get into that obviously as the season goes. So the way I want to set up everything, I think that's pretty much it, right? For the college football playoff, we didn't miss anything. Conferences. Oh, that's right. One more thing I wanted to go over. So the conference, you talked about the SEC, right? So let's just go over real quick what teams were added to what conferences. Because I think if I do this enough times over the next couple of weeks, I will completely remember it. It's unbelievable. They have to change the names. Like I know there's logos involved and right, so they can't change the names and whatnot, but it is so confusing. So let's just go over it real quick, and then I want to move over to the last point. All right, so the SEC now, 16 members. Everything's the same except Oklahoma and Texas. That's relatively easy to remember, right?
Yeah.
ACC. This is where it gets confusing. So you want me to quiz you or you want me to tell you? Whoop.
No, ACC, I think I got it. I want to say I know SMU's one of them.
SMU. There's
Yeah,
3 total new members to
there's
make
three
it
total.
18. Make it 18.
Tulane might be one of them.
Not too late.
Tulane's not one of them. That's kind of silly. They should have picked them up. I don't
Two
know who
West,
the other two are.
two West Coast teams, 2 Pac-12 teams.
Oh yeah, Cal and Stanford. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that those two are interesting ads from an academic standpoint. I can see it making sense. I mean, you have Virginia and North Carolina. You have a lot of academic powerhouses in that conference, but it's the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Talk about like we always get these net sidebar Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, whatever. There's so many different ones, right? Someone's got to do a deep dive into the negotiations of these conference switches, the conversations, the negotiations, what matters to some schools, what doesn't. From like you said, academics matters to some schools, other things don't. It's interesting. So yeah, we got Stanford, Cal, because SMU is not there for academics. Actually, last time I said something about academics, some had a subscriber. I think it was Kent State or something. I got an email. So, all right, let me just shut up because I went to Salisbury and didn't graduate. Anyway, Big 12. Here we go. 16 teams in the Big 12.
This one's pretty easy because UCF Cincinnati joined last year.
Mhm.
You also have Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, and I think that's it.
So the only
Those
one
are
you
the
left
four
out
big ones
was
for
the only one you left out. Did you say Cincinnati joined last year?
yeah, Cincinnati,
Houston.
UCF, BYU, and
Houston.
Houston were all last year. So
And
they're kind of new, but still getting acclimated. And then yeah, the two Arizona schools, Colorado with Coach Prime, and Utah.
Utah's got what's the quarterback's name again?
Cameron Rising.
He's yeah, I like him.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's about 27, but he's really good. So we'll see how that goes for them.
Big Ten is now up to 18. I'm still bitter that Maryland's in the Big Ten. I miss my Maryland Duke rivalries, but regardless, that's life. That's been going on now forever. Now they've added 1, 2, 3, 4 Pac-12. Do you know them off the top of your head?
Yeah, UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington. So they definitely got the pick of the litter when it came to the pack breakup. Although I would say Utah is definitely a football powerhouse, but they're not really well known for much anything else, I would say.
Pac-12, I think we talked about it for a second. So Oregon State and Washington State are like still technically in the Pac-12, don't have a home. Their schedule is full of Mountain West folks plus some Pac-12 folks, but they're eligible only for the 5 seed or an at-large bid. They're not in the Pac-12 because there isn't a Pac-12. So they're by themselves. And then the Mountain West has stayed the same. So if you're familiar with the Mountain West, nothing's changed over there. Then the AAC, they added a bunch of their teams from last year. That's your East Carolina, Memphis, Tulane, Tulsa, Charlotte, North Texas group. You got the Sun Belt, and then you got Conference USA. So yeah, those are we don't have to go through. And then the MAC. Out of all those that we mentioned that aren't SEC, Big Ten, ACC, and Big 12, whoever the best team out of all of those other teams that wins their conference, they get the 5 seed. They get to host the playoff game. So that's cool. I think that makes it got like a little of a March Madness feel to it. I think that makes it, just it gives at least everybody a chance, right?
Yeah, I think this 12 is kind of a just right scenario. You're not making the guys play a ton of football games, but I mean, you're still keeping the home crowd involved, especially if you miss out on winning your conference, but your consolation prize is getting to host a game. You get
Right.
to host a game instead of getting a bye, and some people might see that as a win.
Right. So I guess the way you would look at it, that Ohio State, Michigan, they're undefeated. People are worried the game wouldn't mean anything. It means a lot because you're getting a bye. So I don't think it'll kill those games. It kills the do or die. But at the end of the day, things evolve, things change. We can either complain about it or try to find a way to make money on it. So that's what I prefer to do. Let's end the pod this way as we ease in now to the season. I want to get some of the headlines. We'll start with like kind of the basic stuff, make sure we're trying to help everybody understand the landscape because everything changes, there's transfers, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll get closer to predictions, like, a few days, a week or so before the season actually starts. So let's just start with Michigan, because I just want to get your gut on whether or not they have a chance to A, win their conference, and B, slide in there as one of the top 12 teams. So I'll set it up this way: coach change, quarterback change, coordinators change. I think everybody knows where they all went, but like Michigan got like left behind, right? So Harbaugh's with the Chargers, McCarthy goes to the Vikings. That dominates headlines. But what's left of Michigan? So it starts with this Orgy character, Alex Orgy. He's going to be their quarterback most likely. Things are subject to change. We are what, not even, I guess, halfway through July, right? Not even close. No, we're not even halfway. Like I said, I'm losing track of days and weeks. So we're not even halfway through July. Still have time, but it looks like he'll be the quarterback. He's a dual threat. Their best players in their running back, Donovan Edwards, might be a Heisman candidate, depending on if anybody besides the quarterback can ever get that. And what? I guess it starts on defense. So let me shut up. What do you think? How good will the defense be? Because that seems to be, where the foundation is. And if the defense isn't dominant, then they're not going to be able to get back there. So what's your outlook on the defense? And then your 2 cents here on the quarterback.
Yeah, so I think their defense will be fine. I mean, Sharon Moore will whip them into shape. I think they did a really good job finding a coach, guy that the players already have buy-in to, and I think that's really, really important. Losing Harbaugh is a lot, though. He's the heart and soul. I would argue losing Saban for Alabama is the biggest coaching loss of any school. Harbaugh is a pretty close second. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that guy was the heart and soul of the team. You could see how the school and almost even the state of Michigan rallied around him during that sanction last year and all the trouble that they got in. And I really think that that's going to be a pretty big loss. McCarthy's good, but McCarthy I see more as a game manager, kind of a Tannehill type. Never going to win you the game, but I don't think he's going to lose you the game. So I don't see a big loss for him there. It's just going to be a matter of, can they craft an offense that's based on the running abilities of Orgy, because Orgy is a run first, pass second guy. They brought him in for short yardage situations. Like, even in big moments, he played against Washington, played against Texas, or no, didn't play against. They didn't play Texas. Played against Washington, played against Alabama. So they trust in him in the big moments. It's just he's not a thrower. He's more of a runner. And so when you add Donovan Edwards into the mix, they have a really potent rushing offense, but that's kind of what the Big Ten is built to defend against, right? These teams like Iowa and Northwestern are really big up front, really strong up front. Their front seven is very, very good. And so those are the defenses that are going to maybe be able to stop Michigan.
Michigan, from a betting standpoint, like if you have a strong, the thing I'm going to focus on before the season starts is if you have a super strong opinion on a team that is the opposite of the consensus, that's where you really want to pile on the future bets. Because the way you beat Vegas is you beat them before everybody figures it out, right? And if you can, especially for football, there's always turnover. So to me, if you love Michigan, if you're going to do a deep dive into their roster and you just love their team and you love, then bet them before the season starts. I personally, I just, there won't be any bets for me on Michigan until the end of the year because, like you said, it's too much turnover to know what Harbaugh's impact really is. I want to see a couple big games without, it's just too much. It's not worth it to me. My advice on Michigan and Alabama this year is going to be to just pass, 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 pass. So I know we're starting with Michigan, but I have no hot takes, no strong opinions. There's just too many games to bet on. So for me, when I don't have the intel, unless it's a quarterback that hasn't played yet, that I really have a strong opinion on for wwhatever reason, not that there's like sort of inside information, but you know what I mean? Like maybe there's a reporter or somebody that I trust, or I don't know. If I think a scenario like that, then fine. But most likely, I like to bet on what I know when it comes to college football, not the unknown. So Michigan, I'll probably stay away from for most of the year. I'll really want your opinion on that Michigan Texas game. That's the second game of the year. They open with Fresno State. I think after that, that's like the first game, right? Like after 2, 3 games like that, I think I'll have a stronger opinion. But what's your gut say? If you had to bet on Michigan making the playoffs right this second, would you go in favor or not?
I would. I think they make the playoffs. The Big Ten is it's kind of a mess. I mean, Ryan Day has a track record of not getting it done. And they bring in this Will Howard character from Kansas State who played well, good, not great, but he's very unproven. Ohio State obviously lost a lot of guys this year. I mean, McCord, I don't think is going to come back, but Marvin Harrison's gone. Like they don't we don't really know. We don't
Mm.
really know what Ohio State team we're going to get. Penn State, Drew Aller, phenomenal quarterback. Or at least coming out of college, he was, and then he kind of laid an egg a couple times this year. So you don't know what you're going to get with Penn State. And like those are kind of your three big guys, but it could be any of them. If Drew Aller takes a huge step, Penn State could be the champ here. Ohio State, maybe Ryan Day gets over the hump. Michigan, maybe Sherrone Moore gets that buy-in, and they prove all the doubters wrong. I do not personally. I think Ohio State is probably the most likely bet to win the Big Ten. That'd be
Yeah,
my guess. Michigan has a really big test against a Texas team that returns a ton of guys, including Ewers, and they have a lot of funds. Texas is probably the most well-funded college football program in the country.
and that's what I'm saying. There's certain teams that, not that you have to bet on them, but you can either bet on them or against them when you know what kind of team they're bringing back. And Texas is a perfect team. Like that Texas Michigan game feels like you're either betting on Texas or betting against Texas, not with Michigan, just because of the lack of intel, and all the turnover. But cool. Thanks for taking the time. We can do this. I know we can do this all day. So appreciate you taking the time. No, summer is fun and busy for you. And I appreciate, yeah, excuse me, I appreciate you jumping on board, because you honestly, just so everybody knows, you weren't going to really jump on board until football season starts. But with everything that happened, it was great to have you jump on board as early as you did. So anytime you pop on is great. And we're not forcing any bets. So yeah, you could certainly give me baseball bets. Like not that I'm bragging about it, but I just want people to know, like, if I'm having a real company, right? So Jack could obviously give me baseball bets. He knows who's in first place, but it's a matter of watching the games and having a strong enough opinion. And if you're not going to have that, then I just don't want the bets, right? And you don't
Yes,
want to bet on
exactly.
them. So cool. We'll talk about that stuff more and different strategies and whatnot as we progress. But yeah, we'll keep doing this. I think what we're going to do is go to Big Ten. That's what I think the best way of doing it. I want to do Michigan, then do the Big Ten, and then I want to do Alabama and work our way through the SEC. So next week, we'll have an episode. I don't know exactly when you and I will record, but we will dive more into Ohio State, Penn State, get some predictions for the Big Ten, and that'll be that. So appreciate
Awesome.
everybody. And anything else, or are we good?
I think we're good.
Yeah, we're good. All right, thanks, Jack. I'll see you guys. And yeah, Orioles stuff, a lot going on. So watching the Orioles tonight, I want to talk about a lot of different things, but I wasn't in, frankly, a great mood after the 9-2 showing last night, and it was just such an ugly game. So I figured, perfect day for Jack and I to record. I'll do the Orioles stuff in the morning, and yeah, that'll be that. I'll have picks here in a few minutes. Cool, Jack. See ya. Take care, and everybody have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you.